What up, everybody? What up, everybody? Let me get to the spot. Oh, yeah. All right. Hello, everybody. This is Plan Your Greatness, and I am your gracious host, Carlton Hamilton. All right, let's get right into it. We always start with the weigh-in. 250. Now, some of you know I went down to 243. So right around that little water, that's because I haven't been working out consistently for the past couple of weeks. Been busy, son and daughters, jobs and school and a bunch of other stuff. So haven't quite been able to work out as much as I would like to. But shame on me, but I'm gonna get back in touch and get back on that this week. All right. So I want to get right into it. We are at chapter 5, breaking down every chapter of the book. If there's some small sections within it, we will break down those as well. Title of this chapter, of chapter 5, is Imagine This. What would you do? All right, so we're going to go right into it. This particular chapter, it talks about this. This is the focus of it, is that I want you to imagine that you get up in the morning like you normally do, brush your teeth, shave, shower, eat breakfast. Maybe you read the newspaper, maybe you listen to some radio, maybe motivational music or whatever. But now you're getting ready to go to work. Now you're going to start your commute. Some of you are walking, skateboarding, riding a bike, car, bus, train. However you're doing that commute, about halfway through the commute, you start thinking of when you get to your job, how that day is going to look. All right. So you've got that set in place. However it is that you get ready for that, you know that this is going. Now, here's the twist. As you approach your job, whether you're in a factory or in a call center or in some corporate environment, just imagine that there's somebody in the lobby or out front and they're dressed to do your job. Okay, whatever that is. It could be if it's a sales job, you're dressed business casual. If it's a factory job, like here, shout out to my brother and my family who works at the Chicago stamping plant, local 588. This is my little brother. I took his shirt, Hambone. That's what they all call the Hamiltons. So just a shout out because I knew I was going to be doing this, talking about just work, as far as what happened. But just imagine that there's somebody, maybe not having this on, but dressed like your job, okay? And you've seen that person there for the past 3 weeks, 15 consecutive days you've seen that person there. So now you're thinking to yourself, man, why is this person here? I see him when I come in, see him when I leave, all right? So you go to your supervisor and you say, hey, I noticed this person. Now, picture in your mind, for if you want it to be a dude, make it a dude. If you want it to be a woman, make it a woman. However it sits in your mind, so that you can imagine that there is somebody that's out there every day looking like they're going to work, but they don't. But they're ready. So you go to your supervisor and you say, hey, why is this person always out every day? I've seen him 3 weeks consecutive. So your supervisor looks at you, eyebrows go up, like almost like been waiting for this question. And they go, oh, that person is there. They're ready to replace you. And so now you go, you give the look that your supervisor gave you as you were asking the question. And the supervisor goes, yeah, that person is ready to replace you. Very much ready to replace you. All right, so here's the deal. If you're not up to par, you come to work, but you're giving a half-ass shitty performance that day, that person's ready to replace you. Okay? So if you don't show up, that person's ready to replace you. Okay? If, God forbid, something happens on the way to work during your commute, get in a car accident or something happens and you don't make it here, they're ready to replace you. And so your supervisor just calmly turns away, goes back to their office, and now you're standing there going, huh? So now then you go on with your day, and now you're sitting in your mind like, that person's, man. All right, now here's the understanding of that. Let that sink in for a second. So now that you know there is somebody waiting in the wings on a bench or whatever, ready to replace you, how do you now approach your job? How do you approach your day? Because now as you walk out at the end of the day, you see that person there. You come in, you exit. They seeing that person. How do you look at that person now? How do you look at yourself? How do you look at your job? Okay. I want you to make sure that you think about that, because in most cases that's not a real scenario for corporate people, but it is in other areas, and I'm going to make a point of that. That is, I want you to think in terms of what are you going to do from that point forward. All right. Now, I've done this study, okay, and I've asked people and I've watched, my little unscientific research, and that here's the deal: 98% of people quit. Okay, whether it's immediately or it's within a year, 98% of people quit the job. Now, here's what's interesting: only 2% of the people were willing to take on the challenge. Oh yeah, bring it on. Who is that? Please, let's bring it on. Only 2% of the people, and that number is probably less. So the number of 98 could be fluctuated a little bit. The number of 2% fluctuated a little bit. Only 2% of the people were willing to take on the challenge. Now, here's more specifically. Of that 98 that quit, okay, 2% of them quit immediately. And again, that immediately is within the first year. Now, the rest of the 98 that was remaining there, this is what they did. They strategically, methodically, and tactically quit the job. Okay? We know we've all worked with these people. But here's what's interesting about that. That process took a little longer than a year, but what they did was they strategically, methodically, and tactically did things that moved them from the other job. Now, the 2% just, oh, hell no, I'm not even competing. I'm out, deuces. They figured out a way to get out, but the other ones dragged it on. And this is where most people are in their lives. They do not want to compete. This is why people like state jobs, benefits, all the other stuff. They're not out to be entrepreneurs. And I think I had mentioned that before. 100 years ago, or back at the turn of the century, a little over 100 years ago, 98% of our population, or over 90% of our population, were entrepreneurs, meaning they produced something to sell. Now it is the opposite. People are working for companies that are offering a product to sell. So all we're doing is just being laborers. Okay? Interesting how that's changed. And so now, if you connect that to now it makes sense why nobody wants to compete. Okay? They would much rather just have a job, no stress, no competition or anything. Now, here's what's interesting with that. I'm a former athlete, played professional baseball for 10 years. So everything that I did leading up to that and then playing for 10 years was competitive. I knew that I might have been better than someone, but there was always somebody competing against me to take my position. I whooped them, but it was always somebody competing. I like that. As far as football, basketball, and wrestling are the three sports I know that sticks out. Now, there's other ones that somebody will chime in and go, well, the other sports have these competitions as well. But those are the ones that I know that I participated in: football, basketball, and wrestling, where there was a second string or a third string that was competing against you every single day. So you had somebody in the lobby, sitting on the bench, that you knew if you didn't bring your lunch pail and you weren't ready to compete, that person was going to whoop your ass and take your position. So you had to bring your A game. So that's why I always found it I find it today very difficult why it's allowed that coaches can demand the best out of us. However they get it, they may be very nice, or they may just be, very crude in their approach to getting the best out of us. But in the corporate world, in these call centers, in these sales environments, you can't yell. You got to be nice. you've got to, in some way, very nicely tell somebody that they're not doing their job up to the way that they should be doing it. And then you got to do what a supervisor, a guy that I worked with, a guy by the name of Tony Finn. I had never heard this terminology before. He said, when I find somebody that's not performing up to par, then I go into overdrive and giving them every tool that they need, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to love them out the door. Because if you're not going to perform with what you have right now, but I'm going to give you every tool that you need to be successful. And if you're still not up to par, if you can't make it at that point, then basically what he says, I'm going to love you out the door. And really what he's saying is, I'm going to legally kick your ass out the door. I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to give you every marker. I'm going to give you every tool. I'm going to give every assistance that you need. And if you still can't come up to perform up to standards, we have to let you go. So I have loved you legally out the door. I love that term, because I was always very competitive. My thing was, I said, if you got a board that has the competition, you're keeping score, I'm ready to play, because that's how I was raised. If I score more points than you, I beat you. In the sales environment, if I get more sales than you, I win. I'm either going to get compensated financially, or I'm going to get compensated recognition through the company that says I'm the best dude in whatever the widget we trying to sell. All right, so I bring that to light because I bring this in chapter 5. I put this out there because I said, how many of you are willing to compete when somebody is in your face? How many of you? Not a lot of you, because my statistics, my research says that most people are not willing to compete. All right, so this is what comes out of that, is that then I transferred this conversation. I'm not sure I talked specifically about this in the book, but I wanted to bring this up in the video, is that this is something that could be very powerful within the Black community and within the world as a whole. Because in the Black community, what we do is we so narrowly focus our effort on individuals playing basketball, football, and running track. And this is what we do. We push and push and push, and then we get to a point where it's like we've reached the limits. We still push a little further. Nothing wrong with that. But this is what happens. We don't share the idea that what we're doing translates. Okay, now let me break this down for you. If you are pushing an athlete to the highest level, whether it's track, football, basketball, this is what that person has to do. I want to break it down, is the journey to greatness in any of them sports is you must be able to download the data. Now, this is after it's been recognized that you have the physical gifts. But once you have those gifts, you have to be able to download the data. You have to be able to identify that usefulness of that data, then process it, then disseminate it. Either disseminate it to yourself and, generate a performance, or disseminate it out to others so you get a collective performance. Now, what does that sound like? Does that sound just like football, basketball, track? You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds like some dude working in corporate America in the areas of math, science, engineering, law, aerospace, and military. So this is what I'm getting at, is that when we do that as a society and we push all our Black athletes to do that, and then we don't tell them that those particular skills and how you process that information as an athlete translate over into those particular areas, we are losing the best and the brightest within that field. Okay, within those fields, we are so pushing it towards sports, but make sure that we're not doing what Veblen calls in sociology trained incapacity, where we are not allowing these athletes to understand that those skills translate over into anything else. Okay, we're unfairly telling them that if you don't make it here, you're a failure. We need to tell them that, yes, if you don't make it here, that same skill set transfers over into something else. Shout out to my oldest brother, not my oldest brother, my second oldest brother, Greg, who are my nephew, Ian Hamilton. phenomenal, body built like Terrell Owens. So he went and played football, but my brother constantly had conversations with him that, hey, if you do not make it in football, you're going to take this intellectual skill as far as you understanding plays and routes and all the other stuff. You're going to take that and transfer that over into another life. So you have this smooth transition that you're not doing like some of these athletes. And to this day, right now, Ian is doing well. He's living a great life. He's happy. And he's got another, I have another nephew, Christian. Christian is on that same path. He's going to be a good basketball player. But if that doesn't turn out to him being the next James Harden, he's a lefty like I am. If he does not become a great athlete, and he's going to be a great something and something else. So shout out to my brother Greg, who's done a great job with these boys. All right, just wanted to do that real quick. All right, so as we can see that it does our community a disservice, but I want to put this out there as well. Any kid out there who is non-black, that I've seen this as well, is that they don't push their kid. There's a limit that they go right up to that limit, and then they go find another sport. Go, instead of being football, because most of these kids will try football, basketball, and they'll run track, soccer. They'll introduce that to. Okay, but these other kids, non-black kids, soon as there's a little bit of resistance, or you see that your kid is not quite as gifted as the other kids, what they do, they'll go find they go find another sport, but they have instilled in them is that hey, look, here are the raw numbers. Chances are for you competing with those blacks in basketball, football, and track, more than likely, they're just much more gifted. So let's find one of the other sports that they don't participate in. Golf, baseball, you know what I'm saying? Participate in those sports. And then understand that these are just vehicles, which is what we should be telling our little black kids. They're just vehicles. Use the school because less than 1% are making it to the pros. So they quickly pull their kids out, put them in something else, which is what we should be doing when we see, woo, you're not the top 1% in that sport, but you know what? You're still very gifted. Try these other sports. Try golf. Try soccer. Try baseball. You know what I'm saying? Try tennis. Try those sports. Those non-black parents, boy, they're quickly doing it. Boom, 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 boom. Shuffle their kids into other sports, and then they just slowly go down the ladder until it gets to the end. Oh, you know what? You're just not gifted enough in that boat. But here what you are. You are what you are. So go to school. There's a good chance that you're going to be able to make yourself a life, go in finance, real estate, or anything like that. Those are the conversations that we need to be having. Just like I said, those skills will translate into other sports. And I think the other communities make that a point to have that conversation, that this information transfers well. All right. So before I close this out, the point that I want to make to that is, are you ready to compete? Okay. And if you are ready to compete, understand that competition does not end just with baseball. Your skill set does not just end with just these three major sports. They could transfer to anything. They transfer into life. Okay. And I mentioned three very highly paid, highly skilled areas that you're doing things on the field that translate into it. And that's specifically math, science, engineering, law, aerospace, military. You show me one of those sports that doesn't have the tactical stuff, the critical thinking, the mathematics, the problem solving, all that other stuff, conflict resolution, basketball, football, track. They're all in there. All right. So, but there's other areas of life that we have that I want to make sure that when we do not allow our best and brightest, and that is blacks and non-blacks, to push them and challenge them, and then understanding that we want to have the best and brightest disseminated amongst all areas. There's 9 areas of people activity that's mentioned by a guy by the name of Neely Fuller, and that is economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Now, some people go, what? Sex? Yeah, it's people activity. Now, this may be a controversial point, but I will say that there are some segments of our society that have no business procreating children. You're not financially set to do that, and you're not mentally, psychologically in a place to be fathering, mothering children. You're just not. And so we end up producing some bad children. Now, some people say, well, that sounds like eugenics. You know, you're trying to control. No, I'm not trying to control the population, because I'm sure there's some people out there that agree with me at that point. Some people are too young. Some people just have, they don't have the financial wherewithal to, and we don't have a collective government state that's actually supporting having these children. And then just the mental capacity to be a father or mother. It's a lot of work. So that's what I'm saying. We want to make sure that we got the best and brightest disseminated in all these areas. And we don't do that when we narrowly push our blacks into sports and don't tell them that those things transfer in there. And then we unfairly discourage non-black people to really try their best in these areas before they get out and go into other areas. All right. Now, okay. I hope all that kind of makes sense as far as breaking that down. All right. So I had some other stuff, but I want to close out with this. All right. If you are understanding where you are going to compete, that begins in your imagination. Okay. If you're going to compete, that's going to, you can't operate from your memory. All right. Your memory can only tell you what you have done. Your imagination is the fuel that allows you to compete at this level. All right. So what that ends up doing is making you find, when you get with these tough decisions, are you operating looking at a goal, or are you operating more so looking at the obstacle? I said you got a goal in one hand, obstacle in the other hand. Which one grabs your attention? All right. Again, your philosophy has to be higher than your feelings. I mentioned that in one of the other videos. We want to make sure that you're understanding that point, that when you are, like at the beginning of this, when you're challenged with somebody else challenging you for your job, if you get up in the morning and you go, wow, I really don't even feel like competing today, that person that's waiting might be a little bit more hungrier than you. So you have to just get up and go, you know what? It's time for me to compete. So it doesn't matter what I feel like. My philosophy and my desire to win and to keep my job and to compete has to be higher than my feelings. All right. All right. Challenge. I always end each video with a challenge, something to do. All right. If you've listened to my other videos, you've seen me talk about the 3 questions. What do you want? Because these are the driving questions throughout the book. What do you want? Why do you want it? And can you see it in your imagination, you completing that goal? My challenge to you is ask yourself those 3 questions, but more specifically over the next 21 days, because they say somewhere between 21 and 33. I've heard 21 days to form a habit, but I also heard that it takes to repeat something to a child 33 times before that child really adopts the behavior. So somewhere between 21 and 33, but let's just go with the minimum. 21 days. Once you ask yourself, what do you want? Why do you want it? And can you see it? Do something that is moving you in the direction of that what? For 21 consecutive days. All right. You can drop in the comments, in the mentions, as far as how your progress is going. And maybe when I look back at this video, I'll do another follow-up video, and then that'll give you guys the opportunity to then let me know where you're at. All right. This is Carlton Hamilton. This is Plan Your Greatness. And I'm going to say this again. Plan your greatness. Why? Because no one else will. All right. Thanks for stopping in. I will see you all next time.